Do you know what I like to do on Memorial Day?
I like to look at some baseball cards.
There you go. Hey, we have two special guests here. My cousin Mike, and he makes scoreboards for stadiums. Jumbotrons. And we have Jet Nixon, softball champion. And Jet has some great old stories. Jet, I want to start with you, and I want you to tell me about when you watched Hank Aaron play in the minor leagues.
I lived in Columbus, Georgia, and we were told that there was black players coming to town, and Hank Aaron was coming to town, and didn't realize there was 3 of them on the team. But he came, and we was in the knothole gang at 11 years old. I played Little League, and odd thing was, we didn't communicate with any black players of those days, even kids or anything back in our days. So we were interested, and he played second base. He about 180 pounds, and the people were booing him behind the stands, the coverall guys and the tobacco, the redneck guys, and we thought that was kind of odd. And the manager of the other team asked us, y'all know how to catch the ball? Yes, sir. They put us out behind the double scoreboard in left center field. Said, go out behind the fence, and we're going to throw you some balls. So, come to find out, we couldn't see him with the fence, but here come these balls sailing over the double scoreboard. About 3 or 4 of them baseballs. And of course, I didn't save them. I wished I had them, now, but he got behind to the backstop and started chucking them over the thing, and they shut up. So, and of course, he played for the Jacksonville Braves, and he led the league in hitting. It was his first year in professional ball in the Class Sally League. And I saw him again in 1969 when I was painting house numbers on the curb in Atlanta, Georgia. We'd put a background on with a glass at the top. You could see him at nighttime because they flash back. So anyway, one day I went by Dr. Ralph Abernathy's house, who was Martin Luther King's secretary.
Yes.
And we sat on the porch, and my boys and his boys played in the yard and played ball. And he says, Hank Aaron's house is up the street. I said, really? So we waited on him one day. I had a day game, and we waited, and his son and daughter played with my boys in the yard, and here he come. And we talked for about 30 minutes, we talked about him being in Columbus and what happened in the Saddle League in the old days. And this is 1969 when they had that great team.
Yeah.
With Rico Carty and all the boys, all the 40 home run hitters. What was it? Davy Johnson, Darrell Evans, Cepeda, I think it was, and Hank Aaron all hit 40 home runs. And they had all them Negro brothers, Lou brothers. That was great. That was my favorite team. Rico Carty won the batting.
Yeah, he won the batting title, yeah.
So we talked about him going to these towns in the South having a tough time. They ended up getting 2 players to go with him. They had 2 other players, black players, to play in the league, and they had 3 on the Jacksonville Braves, and they won the league that year. So, but they would take care of them. They'd have to stay in somewhere else. They couldn't stay with the main team. And he was disappointed about it. He talked about that many years about what happened to them back in the day. So
Did they all travel together?
they did travel together.
Okay, they traveled
But
together as a team, but they
Couldn't stay with each
Yeah,
other. Yeah.
okay,
They had to
wow.
stay all the towns, Macon, Savannah,
Well, it
Birmingham.
was still a
all that.
segregated
Yeah,
area
yeah,
back then.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is there anything that stands out about watching Hank Aaron play in the minor leagues?
Well,
Beyond the bombs he hit?
No, he didn't. I don't think he had many home runs, 22 or so, and he batted about 360, I think. But he wasn't more dark than me. We were. I was.
You were out in the sun a lot. You were 10.
Yeah. So, but it was just a great experience. Later on, I wished I had seen him more. But
Yeah.
but he was tickled that I came, and reminisce about that. The Columbus Cardinals was the team, our minor league Class A team there.
Now, when you watched him, did you expect him to play in the pros, in the
Did
majors?
he stand out? I mean, was he?
He was a good hitter.
You
Yeah,
knew-
you could
you
tell.
knew
yeah.
this was gonna be the
Yeah, you
guy.
could tell. Yeah, he was a good hitter. He didn't hit many home runs. I guess 22 wasn't that many of them things, but he didn't do the 40 or 50. But I think if I remember, I think he did hit a home run that day.
Yeah. Well, he never really, he wasn't a 50 home run a year hitter. He just
But he
hit
did play second
30
base.
some every year for his entire
Consistent
career.
ball player.
Yeah, very consistent.
He played second base. So
I did not know he played
Yeah,
second
second
base
base.
in the minors.
I think a fellow named Felix Manila?
Yeah, Felix Manila, yeah.
I was saying at short time, he was from Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the other guys. That was the enforcer guy that went with him to keep people out. Keep people from.
Is that right?
Yeah. So it was a good experience.
So Mike, tell me about your
I'm
coach.
enjoying his story.
Yeah. Me too. He has lots more.
I'm sure of it. I'm sure of it.
But so you made Jumbotron.
We make the electronic systems that support the Jumbotron screens. So all the replay devices and camera devices and graphics and all of that stuff that gets put together as a system, so that there's essentially what you see on TV at home. We do the same kind of system for in stadium scoreboards.
And what are some of the stadiums that you do?
PNC Park, PPG Paints Arena for hockey. We work at Heinz Field, Acrisure Stadium. It's not called Heinz Field anymore. And so, facilities like that. We do collegiate stuff. We do professional stuff as well. And it's kind of interesting. You have a captive audience, so it's not like television. So there's a lot of latitude that the teams fund the effort. They fund the price of all of this, and so they can play around a little bit with the show that they create. And so we give them those tools. We give them those cameras with those special lenses, replay devices that are super slow motion. They're high frame rate cameras and that kind of thing. And we do stuff that allows them to take advantage of the displays that they're putting out in the center field. So those displays now that they're LEDs, they're not. When they started, they were little CRTs, little cathode ray tubes, like little tiny TV sets. Now they're LEDs, and it's a lot more technology. But there's so many more things they can do with it because it's LED technology. They blend together well, and it's pretty neat stuff.
Wow.
Now, when people come and they look at my baseball cards, the first question they always ask is, what's the most expensive one? So what's the most expensive one you've ever installed?
One that we're working on now for the Pittsburgh Penguins is going to be about $6.7 million. It pales in comparison to what the Mets and the Yankees did. A couple of years ago, the one that the Yankees did was, I think it was over $13 million.
Wow.
The thing that Jerry Jones put together in Dallas was purported to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $18 million. So it gets expensive. And then if you add the price of the screen, because the screens aren't cheap, the screens themselves are $10–12 million a piece. So if you look at what they've done in Atlanta, it's an inverted scoreboard. So no matter where you are in the stadium, you can look up and you can see a screen. Wow. And so it goes all the way around the stadium, and you get to see it everywhere. But to make that, normally when you do television, you project it onto a screen or a television set. But when you're trying to do one that's circular, you have to knit the pictures together so that it blends as you're walking around. It's kind of an interesting dilemma. It's kind of cool though. A lot of computers involved.
So you spend
and
a lot
people
of time
are a lot smarter than me, believe me.
So you spend a lot of time at stadiums?
I used to. We have a good collection of employees, design engineers, implementation guys that are they do more of the heavy lifting now. So it's good. It's good. I get to go in before and after the work gets done. And it's not. Yeah, it's nice. It's fun. I enjoy it.
So Jet.
Yes, sir.
You were recruited by Paul Bear Bryant.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
What year was that?
1959.
1959.
And I lived in Columbus, Georgia, and went to Baker High School. I led the state of Georgia in pass receiving. The senior year, the last game I played quarterback for 4 games, and boy, Montreal, Georgia, beat me out about 2 yards, I think, for the. but yeah, he wanted me to be an end. We didn't have wide receivers at the time, and he wanted me to sit out a year. And Joe Namath was coming.
Oh,
and
him.
In those days, you could only play freshman ball. You couldn't play varsity as a freshman.
Okay.
And you had to live in the dormitory. Of course, I didn't know things. My dad, I didn't have a dad after 10 years old, so we ended up getting pregnant, and he got pregnant 3 years in a row. but they wouldn't offer me a scholarship being married and having a child in those days.
Wow.
And so I was going to play safety, and I've been in and play baseball.
Wow.
So I missed out, but my grandson is named Jeffrey Bryant Nixon, and my great-grandson is named Graham Bryant Nixon, after Coach Bryant. And all the Little League teams in Plano, Texas, my son Glenn, basketball, football, and baseball were named Crimson Tide, so that's, we were Crimson Tide fans. And to this day, I still, of course, I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan too.
Oh, no. Oh,
Thanks for
no.
mentioning Jerry Jones.
Yeah,
Cut.
well, you know.
Yeah. So you're 81 years old,
81
right?
years old, yes sir.
And you are a softball champion. I have here a bunch of your rings. So tell me about it.
This is the first one, Charlotte, 7 years ago. And this is the last one, Charlotte, 3 weeks ago.
3 weeks ago.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
And all the rest of them are Tournament of Champions in Florida. They don't give rings to every one of them. They give you a ring just certain championships. And they didn't give these rings a long time ago. It's just been going since 7 years ago.
And you've played for how long?
I played Little League at 11 years old, and I've played every year since then. 70 years.
And softball, you've played your whole life.
Yes.
Wow.
I started in 1963 playing slow pitch softball.
Wow.
I played 1 year fast pitch. Eddie Faitner struck me out a bunch of times in Columbus there.
The king in his court.
Yeah,
So you played against.
But it was Clearwater Bombers. He played with the Clearwater Bombers out of Florida, and he later on he was king in his court.
Yeah.
But he got me at second base when he came to Plano one time. Got me, and his arms was twice the size his right arm than his left arm.
And he struck you out from second
He
base.
did. A lot of other people too.
Yeah, he was
great.
amazing to watch. And
But I played.
you have some cards here.
I got a few. We have a guy that Vinny makes these cards for us. They're here's a really good one here, and he gives old men a chance to be famous for themselves, get their own baseball
Oh,
cards.
that's great.
You know what? I think you earned it.
Thank you, sir.
I
Thank you,
think
sir.
you earned it.
Yeah, I love it.
These are like bigger than the Super Bowl rings. Look at
Wow.
that.
They're offered by the International Senior Softball Association out of Manassas, Virginia. Mr. R.B. Thomas is the head of it. It's all his kids, and they put on tournaments every 2 weeks, and sometimes every week somewhere all over the United States. And they've been in business for 26 years.
What geographic area do you travel around to?
Most of the Southeast,
Yeah.
Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Virginia, and North Carolina, mostly. And of course, I've played all over the United States at one time.
Yeah.
Back when I was in
Yeah.
Texas, I played everywhere. So, and I played against all the big teams, the Howards and the Steels, and all these big paid traveling teams back in the days. And then I'm still good buddies with all of them, and I got them out too.
Excellent.
Pitching, I've been a pitcher, and I've learned a lot of stuff. Been hit with the ball, and of course I wear a face mask now and shin guards to keep me from getting injured bad.
Yeah, I'm
And just
thinking that a
circle
ball coming back at you would come with
they come-
potentially devastating
And
injuries, right?
I pitched from 50 feet, and I go back to 60, and I pitched to the side. It's ASA, it's 6 to 12, and the USSSA is they're at 55, and they can do all kind of ways. These guys do the fancy stuff, but you have to pitch within the boundaries, and it has to go 6 to 12 feet because I don't throw it ever. I throw it 6 feet sometimes, 10 feet, 12 feet, and I throw it from 60 feet back, or it's different. It keeps the batter off balance, and it's just not coming in there.
What's your best pitch?
Well, 60-footer. I can chuck that thing 60-footer, and it come. If you throw from 50 feet, and they see that high arch, and back here you come in there about 10 real fast, and it comes in a different speed. But it has to hit the plate or the mat to be a strike. It used to be, in the old days, well, USSSA, no mat, regular softball, younger guys, has to hit right behind the plate. But if it hits the plate or the mat, it's a strike. And it has to go from 6 to 12 feet. And I got a lot of options out there. I like getting them out too. And striking them out, they look at me. And there's strikeouts in slow pitch softball.
I'm sure.
It's a lot of
I'm
fun.
sure.
Yes. And you meet a lot of people. You meet lots of people, and they all come up and they all hug you, and umpires and all. And I'm good friends on Facebook with all these guys, and it's amazing.
Did you meet any other famous ball players growing up or over the years?
Mickey Mantle. I went in Jack's in Addison, Texas, at the bar, and I had number 7 on. We were going to a Cowboy game. We got 6 tickets, season tickets at the old stadium, and I was the manager there, my buddy. I went to get him to get off work, and I looked down the bar, and there's Mickey Mantle sitting there with the blonde-headed lady. So I don't know who she was, but I turned around, he saw my number 7, and he motioned me over there, and I went over there, and he said, "What are you wearing that number for?" I said, "Well, it's for the greatest ball player of all time." And boy, his face lit up. And we shook hands and hugged and sat down there. And he bought me a drink, got me a drink. And this was about 2 months before he died.
Oh wow!
And
Man, what a treat to be able to have a drink with the Mick.
yeah.
Yeah, no
And
kidding.
I went to this funeral, big funeral downtown.
Oh, you
Dallas.
went?
Yes, sir. Had a funeral in Dallas. There was thousands of people there. It was
I
great.
think you'd almost have to go though.
Yes, sir.
After
Where
that.
was his funeral?
In downtown Dallas, yes, sir.
Downtown Dallas.
I don't
Really?
remember what church. I don't know if it
He was from Oklahoma, right?
He was, but he lived in Dallas.
Oh,
with
okay.
his family.
How do you know he was from Oklahoma?
Yeah, that's where he was born.
Oh, baseball fan.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's Mickey Mantle.
all right.
Yeah.
You are the trivia man.
Like everybody knows Babe Ruth's from Baltimore, right?
And then in 1965 and 1966, I worked at the Coca-Cola Company in Columbus, and they had an exhibition game at Memorial Stadium, and it was the Green Bay Packers and the Washington Redskins, and this was 2 years before the Super Bowl and 1 year before the Super Bowl, and I was on the visitor side in the press box, me up there by myself. I kept the scoreboard, and there was one gentleman that was running the sidelines. He had the clock, and the thing was a long court. And the teams were on the side. Half the Washington Redskins was on the left side of the 50, and the Green Bay Packers was on the right side of the 50. I guess they used to do that back in the old days, yeah. But I didn't realize what I was doing. The professional football was it wasn't a Super Bowl yet. But Paul Horning and all them guys was on the Green Bay Packers. Charlie Huff, and I forgot who they were. I remember number 60 was Huff, but they did it 2 straight years. And I found
Sam Huff
it was Sam Huff. Yeah, Sam Huff.
for the Packers.
No, for the Washington Redskins.
Oh, okay.
But I remember seeing that. But I was over 2 straight years keeping the score for the Green Bay Packers, and probably 1,000 people there, both times.
You were doing the scoreboard yourself?
Yeah, myself.
Because I've got a staff of about 35 people that do a scoreboard game now.
Well,
It's pretty amazing.
that's the stadium that in the 50s and 40s is where Georgia and Alabama, Georgia and Auburn played their college games in that stadium. They didn't play at Auburn in Georgia. They played at Memorial Stadium in Columbus, Georgia.
I didn't know
They
that.
did that for many, many years. I think it held 20,000 people. And that's where I played high school ball, was right there.
Now, who was your favorite Dallas Cowboy of all time?
Well, I played basketball and softball against Roger Staubach and Cliff Harris and Charlie Waters at one time.
I'm sitting next to greatness here.
Troy Aikman dated my son's. Let's see, my son's. Wait a minute, my son's. He dated somebody in my family. I can't remember Troy Aikman, but I don't think Troy Aikman was too famous then. I think it was first a rookie. I think it was the second year. I think when they got him, but Michael Irvin.
Yeah.
He was, and the 3 of them, and Emmett Smith and the Troy Aikman. I think that's the greatest team I've seen of them. And they won
were a
3
great team, for
They won
sure.
3 out of 4, yeah. And Charles Haley, when they got him at the defensive end, boy, that made the team. And I liked all the Cowboys. That was great.
Now, how about who was the one Cowboy? He was the only player to win the MVP of the Super Bowl on a losing team, right? I don't know if he was the only one, but Chuck Howley.
Chuck Howley. Yeah, that was back in the early days, Coach Landry days, yeah.
Yeah, and it was unusual for a defensive player
Right.
to even win it.
Right. We used to go to that motel there on 635, and they had a practice field there that they would watch and see if you had binoculars where you was filming their practices all the time.
Oh, is that right?
Practice, yeah. There's a field right there off 635 in Dallas.
Oh, Bill Belichick.
Yeah,
huh?
Bill Belichick.
Yeah, they just call that the Patriots now.
Boy, them boys are good.
No, I'm just kidding.
Them boys are good ball players. They were. But you met them. I lived in Plano for 40 years, and so my boys. I guess I was at Texas Stadium 300 times. All the
300 times?
Well, we had 19-year season tickets, and then all the Plano and all the teams played their playoff games at Texas Stadium. In fact, there was 55,000 people there one time for a game. I don't know if that's still the state record, but Plano was behind 28-0, and they played Highland Park, which is in the city of Dallas, Highland Park. Highland Park had them 28-0, and Plano beat them 29-28 on the last play of the ball game. And it was Steve Owen went in between and made the 2-point play, beat them 29-28.
Jeez.
So, Mike, who was
pretty amazing.
Who were your players growing up?
My players. I was a baseball fan growing up, and so my players at that time were Stargell and Don Clendenin and Mazeroski and all those Pirates. They were my team, and I remember going on Memorial Day. Here we are. We were going to a doubleheader at Forbes Field years and years and years ago, and watching Roberto Clemente doing those basket catches and throwing it from right field to get a guy out at home plate. It was just incredible stuff.
You got to watch him throw guys out?
Absolutely. It sticks in your head too.
Yes, it does.
It doesn't it though?
It
You
does,
watch a
it
great
does.
player do something phenomenal like that, it sticks with you for a lot of years.
Now, I always argue that Bill Mazeroski is probably the greatest defensive second baseman of all time. You got to watch him play.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Him and Gene Alley were a team that you couldn't beat. You could not beat. If you hit it in the infield, those two guys are going to get you out.
Yeah.
One of the two of them are going to get you out. It's my team.
Gene Alley.
Yeah. Gene Alley was tremendous.
Did you watch Dickie Schofield play?
No, never got to.
Yeah, he was probably a little before
bit
your time.
earlier. Yeah, in the years. And then so I transitioned from Forbes Field into Three Rivers Stadium years later. We moved away. We moved to South Alabama, and when I came back, Forbes Field was gone. Here we are at Three Rivers Stadium, and it was a lot different.
It's so great you got to see games that I wish I would have.
Oh, those old ballparks are tremendous.
Yes.
We did work at Memorial Stadium in Baltimore, and it was another one of those old ballparks that there's just a lot of history to it. There's just a lot of character to it. They were great, and there wasn't a bad seat in any of them. You could sit anywhere in the facility, and you'd have a great view of what's happening, between the pitcher batter. You could see what was going on at first base and second base. It was good. It was all good stuff.
Do you have any specific memories of a specific game you were at or a specific play?
Yeah, I remember one time we were in Ohio when I was younger, very young, and my dad took us to a ball game watching the Reds play, and I wanted Don Clendenin's autograph, and we were sitting like second row back, and he wouldn't give me his autograph. Oh, it did.
Really?
It broke my heart. It really did. But they were all very nice. But I caught him at a bad time. They were on the field and they were practicing, and he's not going to come over and give some little kid an autograph. So maybe at a later date it would have been later in the game. But I've been to an awful lot of games, a lot of different types of games, hockey and football and all. And I think I watched the Patriots beat the tar out of the Steelers for an AFC championship game, and it must have been about maybe 4 degrees, and I was sitting on top of the scoreboard and watching all this. And I have some photographs I could show you later.
Yeah.
But it was so cold on the field, and when they pulled the mat off the field, just all this vapor rose because they were heating it so that it wouldn't be too hard. It was an excellent game. But they beat the tar out of the Steelers. Oh my God!
When I was a little kid, my dad and my uncle took me to it was the first Steeler game I ever went to, and it was a blizzard. And of course, they didn't dress me properly, and they were freezing. They didn't dress properly, so we watched the first quarter out in the stadium, and the second quarter we watched under the heater in the bathroom. And at halftime, they took me to a bar, and we watched the second half in a bar. I couldn't feel my toes. And it was a famous game it was a blizzard, like I said, and we were playing the Colts. And back then it was the Baltimore Colts.
Yeah.
And the guy that cleaned the field, he would come out and just clean the Steelers side of the football. And the other team, the Colts, were going nuts. They were losing their minds over it. But it ended up being kind of a famous game.
Johnny Unitas, huh?
No, I'm not quite that old. It was it would have been Burt Jones, I believe, at that time.
Okay.
And they had players like Roger Carr, Lydell Mitchell.
Yeah.
I remember, that's the one player I remember watching run. Of course, he went to Penn State. He was, actually, Franco Harris was his backup at Penn State.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So, hey guys, thank you so much
Yes, sir.
for joining me.
Thank
This
you,
was a
thank you, thank you, thank you.
fantastic conversation.
Excellent hearing you,
Thank you, sir.
hearing some of your stories.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Good
Yeah,
luck.
now next you come down and look at some of my baseball
I
cards.
will. I'm on the way out.
Everybody you've mentioned, I have their cards.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's
Do you
great.
really? I'll bet you do.
Yes,
I did
Interesting.
see the minor league team, the major league come to every year in Columbus Cardinals, Detroit, and Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Bob Gibson, Stan Musial, Eno Slaughter, all them guys. And I was young, I was little, and didn't know, because back them days they weren't famous, but they was that ball team. You know, it was. I remember all them guys. Yeah.
Yeah, Bob Gibson. They changed the mound for him. They lowered the mound.
Sure did. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Ernie Banks, I think Chicago Cubs one. Ernie
Yeah.
Banks, I saw him play. Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
What kind of shortstop was he defensively?
Well, I didn't really notice on them. I don't know what I when you go to them ball games, you've never seen them before, and your eyes are this big around, and you didn't deal with understand like we do now. We would understand the statistics of it, but they were good. They didn't miss any balls. He didn't miss any balls. He was good.
Yeah, that's what my dad said. He was, if it came to him, he made the play.
He did, yeah.
You know, he didn't have the range necessarily of
Right.
Ozzie Smith, but then
Right.
who did?
Right.
You know, Dick Groat was the same way.
Yeah.
Nice to watch guys that are really good at what they do. Just let them do it, and it's so much fun to watch
Yeah.
them.
It's it's a gift to be able to watch these blessed people who
Yes.
have this amazing talent.
Yes.
And we
Yeah.
all get to live vicariously through them and witness greatness.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks a lot.
All right.
Yep.
And thank you for watching.